Okay. White people can be exhausting. Particularly exhausting are white people who don't know they are white and those who need to be white. But of all the white people I've met, and I've met a lot of them in more than 3 decades of living, studying, and working in places where I'm often the only black woman in sight, the first I found exhausting were those who expected me to be white. To be fair, my parents did set them up for failure. In this society where we believe a name tells us everything we need to know about someone's race, gender, income, and personality, my parents decided to outwit everyone by giving their daughter a white man's name. When I was growing up, they explained that my grandmother's maiden name was Austin, and since her only brother didn't have children, they wanted to make me the last Austin of our family line. Sounds beautiful, right? Well, it is. It just happens to be half the story. How did I discover the other half? Through my exhaustion with a white person. We were in my favorite place, our local library, built in a square with an outdoor garden at the center. At 7 years old, with books piled high in my arms, I often had to be reminded how many I had already checked out when it came time for our next visit. I am certain my family single-handedly kept our library funded. We checked out so many books at a time, we would find them under the car seat, between the cushions of our couch, or hiding under the mail on the table. On this sunny Saturday afternoon, as I stepped up to the front desk to check out my books, I remembered the librarian taking my library card and scanning the back as usual. I braced myself, expecting her to announce the fine I owed for the week. Instead, she raised one eyebrow as the other furrowed and asked, "Is this your card?" Wondering for a split second if I'd mixed up my card with my mother's, I nodded my head yes, but hesitantly. "Are you sure?" she said. "This card says Austin." I nodded more emphatically and smiled. "Yes, that's my card." Perhaps she was surprised a first grader could rack up such a fine. But when I peered over the counter, I saw that she still hadn't opened the book covers up to stamp the day when I should bring them back. Emphasis on should. I waited. "Are you sure this is your card?" she asked again, this time drawing out sure and your as if they had more than one syllable. I tilted my head in exasperation, rolling my eyes toward the popcorn ceiling. Did she not see all the recent books on my account? Surely this woman didn't think I didn't know my own name. Then it dawned on me. She wasn't questioning my literacy. She was another in an already long line of people who couldn't believe my name belonged to me. With a sigh too deep for my young ears, I replied, "Yes, my name is Austin, and that is my library card." She stammered something about my name being unusual as her eyebrows met. I didn't respond. I just waited for her to hand my books back to me. My checkouts in hand, I marched over to my mother, who was standing in the VHS section with my little brother. I demanded that she tell me why she named me Austin. By then, I had gotten used to white people expecting me to be male. It happened every first day of school at roll call. The boys and girls automatically gravitated to opposite sides of the room. And when my name was called, I had to do jumping jacks to get the teacher's attention away from the, quote, boys section, end quote. So how did I know this wasn't more of the same? The woman's suspicion. Because after I answered her question about my little library card, I still was not believed. I couldn't have explained it at the time, but I knew this was about more than me not being a boy. "Why did you give me this name?" I demanded, letting my books fall loudly on the table next to us. My mother, probably wondering how she'd managed to raise a little Judy Blume character of her own, started retelling the story of my grandmother and the Austin family, but I cut her off. "Mama, I know how you came up with the name, but why did you choose it?" She walked over to a set of scratchy green armchairs and started talking in a slow, soothing voice. "Austin, your father and I had a really hard time coming up with a name that we both liked. One of us thought to use your grandmother's maiden name, her last name before she married your grandfather." I already knew this part of the story. I swung my legs impatiently, waiting for her to tell me more. "As we said it aloud, we loved it," she continued. "We knew that anyone who saw it before meeting you would assume you are a white man. One day you will have to apply for jobs. We just wanted to make sure you could make it to the interview. My mother watched my face, waiting for a reaction. My brain scrolled through all the times a stranger had said my name but wasn't talking to me. In every instance, the intended target had been not only a boy, but a white boy. I didn't quite understand my mother's point about job applications. To that point, the only application I had filled out was probably for the library card in my hand. But one thing became clear. People's reaction to my name wasn't just about my gender. It was also about my brown skin. My legs stilled. That's why the librarian hadn't believed me. She didn't know a name like Austin could be stretched wide enough to cloak a little black girl. As I grew older, my parents' plan worked almost too well. To this day, I receive emails addressed to Mr. Austin Brown and voicemails asking if Mr. Brown can please return their call. When I am being introduced to new people, there's often an attempt to feminize my name. Parentheses, you mean Autumn? Or to assign my name to my husband. And though I usually note that I am a black woman in my cover letters, I nonetheless surprise hiring committees when I show up to the interview in all my melanin glory. Heading into the meeting, I'm dressed up and nervous. Typically, I've made it beyond the essay writing stage, the personality test, or the phone interview with HR. This in-person group is usually the final step. I sit in the lobby waiting for someone to collect me. An assistant comes around the corner and looks at me, wondering if I could possibly be the next candidate. A little tentative, in case a grave mistake has been made, he asks, "Are you Austin?" I reply with an enthusiastic yes, pretending I didn't notice the look of panic that they'd accidentally invited a black girl to the interview. The tension eases for him as it grips the muscle under my right shoulder blade. That's crazy. The tension eases for him as it grips the muscle under my right shoulder blade. I silently take a couple deep breaths as I follow him to the conference room. Everyone, this is Austin. Every pair of eyes looks at me in surprise. They look at the person next to them. They blink. Then they look down at my resume. Every single time. The person who walked me into the room is still talking, but no one is listening. I hope she means this to be funny. I mean, she does, but it's okay. They're all combing my resume looking for clues. Should they have known? Am I now more impressive or less impressive? What does this mean for the position, for the partners, for the team? They weren't prepared for this. They were expecting a white man. It would be comical if it wasn't so damn disappointing. Thanks to the progressive circles I usually travel in, most people want to be excited by the, quote, mistake and ignore all the thoughts, the questions, the change that happened when my body stood before them. But that moment cannot be ignored. The thoughts and questions may dissipate from the interview, but never from the mind, the heart. For this becomes the unspoken question for my entire time with an organization. Are we sure she will be a good fit? Or, said another way, since we didn't vet her knowing she is a black woman, are we sure she'll fit in with our white culture? Should we have hired the white person who came next? I cannot speak for every black woman navigating white culture, but this is how being hired usually unfolds for me. First, I am given a promise, usually from a supervisor, coworker, or member of the hiring committee, that she is a safe person for me to talk to if anything racist happens. To make the promise of safety feel genuine, she admits to the organization isn't perfect, that the organization isn't perfect, and assures me that I can share if there's ever an inappropriate comment, a wrong word. That way, the problem can be addressed. Second, I'm given a brief account of the organization's imperfections, a series of stories involving elusive people who no longer belong to the organization. The stories usually concern examples of, quote, missteps. The time a person, quote, misspoke in a board meeting when a racist email was intercepted by leadership. But they end on a note of hope, expressing how the organization reacted. We invited, insert name of famous black person, to speak at our annual lunch. We launched an 8-week discussion group on book by black author. But within My first few weeks of working there, the organization's stereotypes, biases, or prejudices begin to emerge. Comments about my hair, accolades for being surprisingly articulate or particularly entertaining, ill. Requests to be more black in my speech, questions about single moms, the hood, quote, black on black crime, and other hot topics I'm supposed to know all about because I'm black. So I bring up the incidents with my safe person, the one who said she wants to know about these encounters, but the response is some version of, perhaps you misunderstood, or I'm sure he didn't mean it like that. My God, I've heard that so many times. Oftentimes, the responsibility to extend compassion falls on me. You really ought to go back to talk to him. Perhaps if you were more patient, you could see his heart. So I move on. Rather than dwell on individuals, I speak about the system, about white boardrooms and white leadership teams, about white culture and the organization's habit of hiring people who perpetuate that culture rather than diversify it. But the white consensus doesn't want me to point out these things. I was only supposed to name the bad apples, so now whiteness has a few names for me. Divisive, negative, toxic. I feel disappointed. I had hoped that this organization, this group of people might be different from the last one, that they would understand what it means to embody an organization's diversity in more than numbers. But instead of giving up, I take a step back. I return to pointing out the bad apples, hoping that my doing so will lead others to see the systemic. I talk about the woman who touched my hair without permission, and the man who called me colored in the hallway. I talk about how when I walk into our church, people still ask me if I'm looking for the food pantry. How they greet me as a newcomer every Sunday, even though I have not changed my seat in 2 years. I'm not interested in getting anyone in trouble. I am trying to clarify what it's like to exist in a black body in an organization that doesn't understand it. It's not only Christian, but also white. Ooh. Sorry, I'm trying to clarify what it's like to exist in a black body in an organization that doesn't understand it is not only Christian, but also white. Interesting. But instead of offering empathy and action, whiteness finds new names for me and offers ominous advice. I am too sensitive and should be careful with what I report. I'm too angry and should watch my tone when I talk about my experiences. I am too inflexible and I should learn to offer more grace to people who are really trying. It's exhausting. White people who expect me to be white have not yet realized that their cultural way of being is not, in fact, the result of goodness, rightness, or God's blessing. Pushing back, resisting the lie, is hella work. It's work to be the only person of color in an organization, bearing the weight of all your white coworkers' questions about blackness. It's work to always be hypervisible because of your skin, easily identified as being present or absent, but for your needs to be completely invisible to those around you. It's work to do the emotional labor of pointing out problematic racist thinking, policies, actions, and statements while desperately trying to avoid bitterness and cynicism. It's work to stay open to an organization to learn new skills without drinking in the cultural expectations of body size, personality, interests, and talents most valued according to whiteness. Quite frankly, the work isn't just tedious. It can be dangerous for Black women to attempt to carve out space for themselves, their perspective, their gifts, their skills, their education, their experiences, in places that haven't examined the prevailing assumption of white culture. The danger of letting whiteness walk off with our joy, our peace, our sense of dignity and self-love is ever present. Oof. But it doesn't have to be this way. Togetherness across racial lines doesn't have to mean the uplifting of whiteness and harming of Blackness. And even though the church I love has been the oppressor as often as it has been the champion of the oppressed, I can't let go of my belief in church, in a universal body of belonging, in a community that reaches toward love in a world so often filled with hate. I continue to be drawn toward the collective participation of seeking good, even when that means critiquing the institution I love for its commitment to whiteness. And this is where she talks about the book. Wow, this is really interesting. This book is about my story growing up in a Black girl's body. There's nothing profound about where my story takes place. I didn't grow up in another country, in the deep south or the hood. I grew up around white people in a family-friendly, middle-class neighborhood. There was neither devastating poverty nor incredible wealth, and the demographics of my neighborhood and schools often mimicked America as a whole. Mostly white, never exclusively so. I also grew up in the late 80s and early 90s, the height of America's supposed commitment to racial colorblindness. At my Christian elementary school, we sang, "Jesus loves the little children, red and yellow, black and white, all are precious in his sight." Ooh, I didn't know that was a song. I knew oh, okay. In alignment with its song, white people often professed, "I don't even see color," reassuring me that I would be safe from racism with them. And yet I learned pretty early in life that while Jesus may be cool with racial diversity, America is not. The ideology that whiteness is supreme, better, best, permeates the air we breathe, in our schools, in our offices, and in our country's common life. White supremacy is a tradition that must be named and a religion that must be renounced. When this work has not been done, those who live in whiteness become oppressive, whether intentional or not. I learned about whiteness up close, in its classrooms and hallways, in its offices and sanctuaries. At the same time, I was also learning about blackness, about myself, and about my faith. My story is not about condemning white people, but about rejecting the assumption, sometimes spoken, sometimes not, that white is right, closer to God, holy, chosen, the epitome of being. My story is about choosing to love my black femaleness even when it shocks folks who expected someone quite different. It's about standing before roomfuls of Christians and challenging them to see blackness without the baggage of racist bias. It's about surviving in a world not made for me, where my parents tried to arm me with the cultural cash of a white male name. I offer this story in hopes that we will embody a community eager to name whiteness, celebrate blackness, and in a world still governed by systems of racial oppression, begin to see that there's another way. That was so good. And that was White People Are Exhausting, Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is called Playing Spades. I'm gonna wait for that. Oh my god, playing spades. I learned how to play spades, and I was really good, but I haven't played in so long, and the competition makes me anxious. And it gets so scary. Especially when it's like, okay, predict it, but don't be too many behinds or above. Ooh, it gets spicy. This was good. I only had previously read like half that chapter. I didn't really, I saw something about, among Christians, yes, okay. Yeah, I saw something about it, about the church as well, and I think that's going to be interesting. And it's, yeah. Interesting. I might not do this like chapter by chapter or anything. I just like started it and I was like, I want to do this with somebody. And I did it with all of you. Yeah? Ooh. I bet. Like, the things that we realize after the fact are like, it's just like even sometimes just our regular stuff I look at from like as if I never learned the cultural norms. Like, okay, let me just pretend. And I'm just like looking at this thing. It's so creepy, so much of the stuff we do and say. And that's why I'm like, how about we just start a new one? And I just make up my own shit too, because they could do it. So that's why I'm a part of a cult against cults. And a cult doesn't want to be called a cult. Like a real cult, if you say, are you a cult? They're like, So you have to be okay. So we're a cult that's like anti-cult, and all we do is question shit. And we're like, but are you sure? But who told you that? And so it's like a, you know, we're like, or we're like anti-coercive control, or the like cancel coercive control cult. And like cancel isn't a real thing. So, but you know what I mean. Like those people would be nervous about canceling because coercive control doesn't want to be spoken about. Anybody who's doing that wants to remain under the radar. You know what I'm saying? So we want to ask the questions, speak it, say what it is, say the thing out loud. This is a tenet of white supremacy. Like the fact that white people act like that's a curse word is weird because why are y'all uncomfortable? I saw that Big Brother clip that had gone around. I don't watch Big Brother. I know nothing about it except for random like race moments that I happen upon in my feed. And the white guy says the N-word like super cash. And the black guy's like, white people get so uncomfortable. Like, I don't even need to get uncomfortable. Like, y'all are doing it for it. He didn't say y'all are doing it for me. I said that. We're like, cancel subscription. You're so right. I don't want to get people too mad at me because I'm already calling it Questionity because that's amazing. That's a great name. And I don't want people to get mad, but like, and I already know what the symbol should look like. Like it should be like a Q, right? Right? But like, there's like a question mark built into this part of it. Oh, it's backwards. You know what I mean? This, and then there's just a dot at the end, and it's yeah, you know what I mean? It's on my profile now because I was like, I have to like sneak it out there. Thank you. I appreciate it. Share it. Tell people about it. Don't ever feel like I need credit or like, how do I appropriately share her information like in a way she won't be mad about? I don't care. Because the more people that hear stuff that I'm trying to say are more chances to rehumanize a black person in a white person's eyes. And that's to be basically like a whole life. So I don't care. Credit is not, white man paperwork, I am actively removing myself from. It's a natural thought process, but I'm like indoctrinating, right? Via Questionity and realizing like, so I had trademarked I applied for the trademark for White Woman Whisperer and it was going through. And there was like, yeah, you can use the trademark. And then all of a sudden there's this, somebody got like White Man Whisperer. It's a black dude. And I was like, I should email him and see. It was like, we have to do whatever. Like, I'm spending so much energy on this paperwork, and that's part of the problem. Like, I should just be doing the stuff. And so that's what I'm doing. And not focusing so much on getting what I'm worth or like making them, because I can't, my brain, there's too many numbers, you know? I appreciate that. Thank you. And definitely towards the Patreon for like, and like give them the whole spiel about numbers, right? We're trying to be a wide movement, but like, I gotta pay, right? Too, right? So we're moving together. This is why, and it also keeps my page like ad free and keeps me from having to do sponsors and ads on anything. I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't do deals. You don't see me doing paid partnerships. Not that I'm like, please stop offering me money. They're not. But I could be trying to do that, but I just feel like that would not be a good use of my time and energy right now when I'm like trying to undoctrinate and heal. Like bringing capitalism into it gets so overwhelming, like dizzying. So I appreciate it. Look, if you cannot, I totally get it. And be aware, like you can edit the amount. It seems like some people, and TikTok, sometimes it won't work. Like if you want to get to the Patreon through my link tree on TikTok, it won't go. But if you like leave TikTok, it'll take you, which I find very suspicious. Thank you so much. And you can change it to $1. Like, I don't expect to get my worth from everybody because this is a different model. And I have a blog about my Winfluencer model, which I would love for more Black creators to be able to do, and to be able to just work as their brain works. It's almost like independent study. Like, our followers are supporting our ability to continue to do this and do the work and read the books and share as we go. And all it takes is everybody just actively choosing something that is kind of anti to what it's to your natural instinct in capitalism is to go, everyone wants something free, which I saw in a comment recently, and white people tend to think that that's what everyone does, and it is not at all. If you knew the demographics of the people who subscribe to stuff without having to in order to gain, because you don't have to in order to see my stuff, right? It's always Black women first. And it's always people who I know, and I'm like, no, that's not how this works. But I get it. And that is a feature of whiteness, to get what you can for free, to go and get all the swag and go, well, it's free. If it's free, it's for me. That is not an everybody thing. And especially in indigenous cultures. And I remember having that conversation around the parks, the national parks. That's a problem, because white people were like, $20, I get in for free all the time. And it's like, you're not sounding great. You got in for free, so you're not helping us to sustain it and live here. Thanks. Thank you. Me too. I think this one's my favorite. I made 2 of these, which I also like, but I think novelty, right? And I made one of these, and now I'm making this. I like this. I just like the variegated yarn, or however you say that. I'm enjoying this. And I like that it's not a blanket when it's hot. I look like springtime, right? Look at me, so colorful. If you knew how much black I used to don, but when I go outside, I definitely don't look like this. I like gray, black sweats. Like, don't look at me. Nobody see me ever. And then I come in and I'm like, pink and roller skates. So we're getting there. Look, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure these things come natural to certain humans. Like, these things, like these old things that are coming back, I'm like, wait, this is human nature for some people. And there were people who naturally would, I'm like, oh shit, not everything you do has to be suffering through it. Judy had me on that one. It's like, I'm working even when I'm enjoying it, right? During the day, I'm like, I should be working. And then I get on live and I'm talking to people and they're like, and I'm like, I was doing this, and I said, but I'm just I'm beating myself up while I'm sitting here. Like, why aren't you suffering? Like, you're supposed to suffer, right? Yeah, Celine, right? That could be working. Singing, and Portia said we're gonna have a Celine fest a night, so I'm really excited. The things you don't know you have in common with people. That's how we rehumanize people to other people. Connecting on things that are not about serious. Being like, oh, you have a Frenchie? I have a Frenchie. I like to crochet. You like to crochet. Maybe I don't hate Black people. What? I hate that that's as simple as it is, but it is truly. It's like, make it about race, and you could probably change a racist mind by just like finding the thing they're interested in and then making it like, making them care about a Black person or two within that thing. Hi, Con! I've been meaning to DM you, not for any reason in particular, but just to be like, hi, you wanna get a drink or something? P, hi, love you. Oh, were you busy? Oh, I saw you were on Porter. Yeah. Hi. I'm sure you're tired and you were working. I have nothing. Yeah. Yes. I would love that. I love that. And I I was gonna invoke your name in like my brain. I was like, do you know how scared trolls would be if they knew that I have a connection and they would get consequences for their actions. There was a lot happening in my brain about consequences and like trolls, but like not really. Like I would never want to find these people, but I realized that that's what they're most afraid of. Because when I post comment replies, that's when they're like, oh, well, that's drawing the line. That's too public. I didn't expect. I expected you to take this harassment the way it was intended, to you only. Don't to put my name out there. That's insanity. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to make that joke one day. And I was like, I can't just say that. How dare I, right? Literally on the app. And they were justifying putting my face on the live by saying, well, she put that person's comments on her page and it has hundreds of thousands. They counted the amount of views on my 10 videos. Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right. This is how I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm having a day too.
Really?
Well, just like, I was on live earlier, and I dropped my phone on my lip.
Oh,
A tiny red dot.
yes.
And the amount of hate that I got for a tiny red dot, the amount of people that were coming into my live accusing my husband of abusing me.
No, I was not going there in my brain at all.
Because I have a tiny red dot on my lip.
Holy, whoa. I was going straight.
Well, obviously that too.
Right, but like no part of, but that's interesting for my black woman brain right now. You know how I be. That like no part of me was like they would be concerned. Like 0 times would they think that for me.
Also, like, the jumps, right? One person comes in and says, she's lying. Look at her lip and the bruises on her chest. Have you seen a bruise before? And on what body is that a bruise? Right?
That's not, yeah.
It's just so frustrating and like,
Who is that for? That can't be for your benefit.
but they, like, I don't understand what's happening, right? Like, what's getting me is that, like,
I don't get it.